Donald Trump winning every single swing state and the popular vote. Republicans taking the Senate, will likely take the House. But former DNC chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz does not think this was a red wave election.
This was not the wave election that the majority of the media is portraying. Voters had a Trump on the ballot the last 3 elections. We had a very short presidential campaign with our nominee, and there were a lot of other issues as well.
Beverly Hallberg is the president of District Media Group and a fellow at the Independent Women's Forum, and she joins me now. Beverly, good morning to you. So what do you think about that comment?
Good morning. Well, yeah, there are a lot of issues. That's where I would agree with the Congresswoman. But the fact that she thinks, and she even mentioned this, that the media landscape is too diffused, and that's part of the problem. What a lot of Democrats are pointing to, other than just the Democrat Party or Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or Nancy Pelosi, is actually pointing out the media. And what they're actually saying is that Americans should only be able to view legacy media that Democrats are obviously in charge of. She talked about podcasts. Well, the reality is that Joe Rogan invited Kamala Harris on the podcast, and she decided not to go on. I think one of the things we're taking from this from a media perspective is the reason there was this red wave is because Americans are not buying what legacy media is selling, and that's what Democrats need to focus on.
I think you're 100% right there, but bigger picture, broaden this out for a second. If Democrats continue, like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Nancy Pelosi, to be naive as to the 2 reasons why Kamala Harris lost, the economy and the border, doesn't that really bode well for Republicans come 2026?
Oh, yeah. If Democrats don't actually take a hard look at themselves and figure out what went wrong, this is going to continue to happen. And part of that is they have focused on identity politics, and they have not focused on immigration, the border, real issues such as inflation and the cost of goods, cost of items. If they don't hone into that, they're definitely going to lose. And there's another part of this. They also need to look at the fact that their candidates need to be able to sell a message and answer tough questions. The fact that Kamala Harris couldn't answer the most basic of questions shows that these candidates often aren't challenged. And so they need to get used to a curious media environment. They need to be able to answer questions, because if they don't, the American people are not going to vote for them anymore. Like I said, there's a lot of introspection that needs to happen.
Yeah, speaking of introspection, we've seen the clips. There were many members of the media who said insulting things about Trump supporters ahead of the election, and it backfired. And now actress Patricia Heaton, she's highlighting that and responding. Watch this.
All these extremists that are allowed television time, who told women that this is what is going to happen to them, shame on you. Shame on you. Learn your lesson about smearing people who feel differently from you, who have different needs from you, and who have legitimate complaints. Quit dismissing them as uneducated. When are you going to learn?
Do you think the media is going to take that advice?
Well, we'll find out and see. I will say that when we talk about women, and we've seen a lot of women shaving their heads, I think it's quite interesting that they decide to record that and post it on social media. If they were that afraid for their rights, I don't think they would be putting it out for public consumption. But another side of this, I think she hits on a really important part when she says uneducated voters. That's what we continue to hear. We're talking about voters who don't have college degrees, but these voters are very educated, often working in the trades. I even think about COVID. It was the people working in blue-collar jobs who actually kept this country going. Democrats are going to have to view blue-collar workers, those who work in the trades and skills, very differently. If we continue to look at them as being ignorant and uneducated, of course, that voter is not going to go for the Democrat Party.
Interesting stuff all around. Beverly Hallberg, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.